I'm Lauren from Red Thread Studio. We are a sewing and dressmaking company based in Edinburgh, Scotland. We opened in 2013 and over the past few years we've been teaching thousands of people how to sew. Today we'll be working on making scrubs. We'll be concentrating on the more complicated aspects of sewing scrubs, for example, necklines, side vents and inseam pockets. So let's get started. Many of you have been asking for help with sewing the side vents, so I've created this little tutorial to help you along the way. What we're going to need is our top sewn with the neckline already sewn. If you haven't done that yet, if you could have a look at our previous sewing tutorial, that will help you along the way with that. And you also want to have your patch pockets sewn on the front as well before you attempt to do your vents. Okay, so what we've got is we've got our side seams open here and we've got our vent marking marked on the fabric. And then we're going to put our machines on a zigzag stitch setting. I've set mine to a wide width of 5 and quite a narrow length of 2. I find that gives me a nice tight zigzag for the purpose of scrubs. They're going to be washed many times and used a lot, so we want to make sure that our zigzags are nice and tight so that the thread doesn't unravel and the fabric doesn't fray. Okay, so let's get sewing. So what we want to do is we want to finish off this edge with a zigzag all the way up to that marking that you've done, and I'm actually going to do my zigzag slightly higher. I'm going to do it roughly about 2 centimeters higher than that marking that I've got for my my vent opening, just to make sure that that seam is covered properly by the zigzag. So I've got to that marking over there and I'm going to go about 2 centimeters beyond it, and I'm just going to do a little back stitch. I don't tend to do back stitches with zigzags, but this needs to be nice and secure, so I'm just going to do that there. Okay, and then I'm going to do that with all of the 4 edges of my top. So I've zigzagged my bottom 4 edges. I am using red thread for the purpose of these videos because it's our brand, and also because hopefully you'll be able to see the stitching in the videos. And once you've done all 4 of those edges, we're going to start to stitch our seam lines, side seams. So what to do is start pinning your back and your front top pieces together. So this is the top of the sleeve. I'm using a pattern which has a grown in sleeve, but if you are using a pattern that has a sleeve already sewn, that needs a sleeve to be attached to it, it works exactly the same way. You basically want to start at the top of your sleeve and work your way all the way to your underarm seam here, and then keep going all the way to your vent opening over here. Right, so I'm going to pin these seams together. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my top underneath the sewing machine. I'm going to make sure that it's on a stitch setting of the straight stitch. Take it off the zigzag, and I'm going to sew my seam allowance, whatever your pattern asks you to do. Okay, I find it's quite a sharp curve as you get to the underarm, so I'm lifting up my presser foot quite a lot to get me around this sharp curve. You'll notice that I am making sure that I'm putting my needle in my fabric before I lift up my presser foot, just like that. You really don't want to lose your place when you're stitching, so make sure that you put your needle down before you lift up your presser foot. So I finished my side seam stitching, and when I did my back stitch I went over it a few times. This seam's going to get quite a lot of stress on it, so I want to make sure that it's really secure and doesn't unravel. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your seam to your iron, and you're going to press open these edges over here to whatever your seam allowance of your pattern asks you to do. Once you've pressed open your vent opening, I've basically pressed mine just up to my zigzag. We're going to turn it over to the right side of the fabric, and I'm going to put the left hand side of my opening under the presser foot. I'm going to use a 1 centimeter seam allowance here, starting with a back stitch. Don't worry if it bunches up when you start, because that's going to get caught in the hem anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I'm going to stitch all the way up to the top of my vent opening. And then I'm going to stop sewing about 1 centimeter above that opening, so about 3 stitches. Okay, and then making sure that my needle's in my fabric before I lift up my presser foot, I'm going to swirl everything around 90 degrees, and then I'm going to put my presser foot down, and I'm going to stitch over that seam over here straight. So we're aiming for a nice sharp square. I'm using my hand wheel to give me more control, to be able to stitch slowly and to get me a nice sharp corner over there. And then I'm going to lift up my presser foot with my needle in the fabric and swing it round again, so I can stitch back down to the bottom. Okay, so we're aiming for a 1 centimeter seam again along the bottom. And then finishing off with your back stitch. There we go. Alright, so there you have your vent opening with your top stitching going like a square along that opening. To recap, we have completed our top stitching on our vents on both sides, and then we have pressed our hem, and in order to press the hem you want to fold over the raw section of the hem over first. Then you want to take the corner point, fold that over, give that a nice press, and then after that fold it over again and give that all a good press. So you've got a lovely nice mitered corner over there. Okay, once you've done that, you want to pin the hem, and you've got 2 different hem sections. You've got the front hem and then the back hem of the top. So I've pinned both of those sections, and then you're going to put the fabric under the presser foot and stitch a straight edge all the way along. I'm going to use a 1 centimeter seam allowance for this as well. I find having a really nice sharp needle when I do my top stitching, especially through quite a few layers, is really helpful. So if you haven't changed your needle of your sewing machine in a while, I highly recommend doing that. I've also put the pins with the ball of the pin on the outside perpendicular to my hem, and that helps me just to be able to sew over my pins, and also to be able to take them out easily if I need to. Just doing my back stitch as I get to the end. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same for the other side. Now before we finish, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back inside my garments and I'm going to go back to those side seams. Okay, and I'm going to trim them right down to 1/2 centimeter. There's many ways of finishing seams. If you've got an overlocker, that's great, or a zigzag. A lot of people clip these seams on curves every centimeter. I'm going to trim mine down to 1/2 centimeter to reduce the bulk. So all the way around. I just find it gives it a really nice, neat edge. Okay, working my way all the way up to that vent. Okay, and as you get to the vent, what you're going to do is you're just going to ease your scissors up to the zigzagging, the previous bit of zigzagging you've done, and it's just going to go off the edge like that. Okay. As much as you can, or as close to the original zigzagging as you can. I'm just going to trim that bit over there, like that. Okay, and I'm going to put a pin in those 2 layers of that seam opening, just to hold that fabric together over there. Okay, then I'm going to place this all under the machine and I'm going to do my zigzag. And then as you get to this sharp curve over here, what you can do is put your needle in the fabric and lift up your foot and bend the fabric round to the front like this, so that you can actually get round this corner much more easily. All the way down, and then you get to the end. I wouldn't worry with back stitching that, because that's just going to get caught in the hem anyway. Okay, so there's your finished edge of your side seam, and you can take the pin out, and then you've got your finished edge all the way up to your vent opening, with your vent opening completed. So that's all from me today, and hope to see you again. I'd love you to have a look at the other online tutorials that we're doing, so hope to see you again soon. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us at Red Thread Studio. If you've got any questions or if you'd like to see any other YouTube tutorials, please give us a shout. Hope you have a wonderful day. Happy sewing.